Good morning, fifth grade. Today we are on Module 1, Lesson 13. Our learning target today is I can divide decimals by whole numbers using my understanding of place value. So we're just going to keep going. We've been multiplying place values using the area, or multiplying decimals using the area model. And now we're just going to keep going, and we're going to divide by single digit whole numbers. So you're not going to be dividing by decimals, you're just going to divide by single digit numbers. And we're going to use our understanding of place value and our place value chart to do that. So we've already covered the sprint, so we're going to go on to find the product and do a little multiplication review. So this first one, go ahead and pause actually and do these three problems, and then we will come back and check them together. So just go ahead and pause for like 1 minute and do the problems and then unpause. Okay, so this first one up here is pretty easy. 4 times 3 ones. It's just a regular no decimal multiplication problem. 4 times 3 is 12. You're multiplying by 1, so you just have 12 ones. The second one, 4 times 8 tenths is going, or I'm sorry, 4 times 2 tenths is going to be 8 tenths. And of course, when you write that, you're going to put your 8 in the tenths spot, so it's going to be 0.8. 4 times 3 ones and 2 tenths. So I don't have to draw the area model. I can just show it here. So 4 times 3 ones is going to be 12 ones. And 4 times 2 tenths is going to be 8 tenths. And if I write that as a decimal, it's going to be 12 ones and 8 tenths, 12.8. 4 times 3 ones, 2 tenths, 1/100th. So 4 times 3 ones is going to be 12 ones, and 4 times 2 tenths is going to be 8 tenths, and 4 times 1/100th is going to be 4 hundredths. Running out of room here. And if I write that as a decimal, I'm going to write it 12 and 81. Sorry, 12 and 84 hundredths. And then the last one, 9 times 1/10 is just going to be 9 tenths. Or if I wrote that as a decimal, it would be 0.9. Okay. Go ahead and pause to find the product on these 4 problems, and then unpause and we'll go over them together. Okay, the first one, we're going to write the multiplication sentences. So we're going 9 times 3 hundredths. We got that 3 in the hundredths place. So 9 times 3 hundredths would be 27 hundredths. And I'm going to write that as 0.27. Notice the 7 is in the hundredths place because we're multiplying by hundredths. 9 times 2 ones, 1/10, 3 hundredths is going to be 9 times 2.13. And I'm going to have 18. No, I'm sorry. I'm not going to have 18. I'm going to solve this one with the area model first. I'm going to show you how I do that because we're going to have to carry some over here. So I've got my 2, 1, 3. So 3 times 9 is 27 hundredths. And then 9 times 1 is 9 tenths. And 9 times 2 is 18. I'm going to move my 2 over here because I have 2 groups of 10. That's why I'm moving it over. I'm moving over my 2 groups of 10, leave my 7 here. So now this is going to become 11. And I'm going to move my 1 group of 10 over into the next column. So this is going, the 1's going to stay here, and this is going to become 19 plus 1/10, so 0.1 plus 7 hundredths. So my answer for this one is going to be 19 and 17 hundredths. Okay. Then the next one is going to be 4 ones, 1/100th and 2/1000ths times 4. So I'm going to go ahead and use my standard multiplication model for that one. 4 and 12/1000ths times 4. Okay, so 2 times 4 is 8, 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 0 is 0, 4 times 4 is 16, and then I multiplied by thousandths, so my 8 needs to be in the thousandths column, so I'm going to put my decimal there between the 6 and the 0, so 16 and 48 thousandths is going to be my answer for that one. And then for the last one, I have 5 times 3 ones, 2 tenths, 300ths, and 7 thousandths. So I can go ahead and write that in my standard algorithm. So 3.237 times 5. Okay, 5 times 7 is 35. Carry my 3. Start over here. 5 times 7 is 35. Bring down my 5. Carry the 3. 5 times 3 is 15. Plus 3 more is 18. So I'm going to bring down my 8. Carry the 1. 5 times 2 is 10. Plus 1 more is 11. I'm going to bring down my 1 and carry this one over. 5 times 3 is 15. Plus 1 more is 16. And so my last digit was in the thousandths. I'm multiplying by thousandths. So it needs to be thousandths over here too. So this is thousandths, hundredths, tenths, and I put my decimal here. Okay, moving on. Well, I'll read you the application problem, then go ahead and pause it, work on the application problem, then unpause, and we'll go over it. So Lewis buys 4 chocolates. Each chocolate costs $2.35. Lewis multiplies 4 times 235 and gets 940. Place the decimal to show the cost of the chocolates and explain your reasoning using words, numbers, and pictures. Okay, so go ahead and pause and work on the problem. Okay, so Lewis multiplied 4 times 235 and got 940. We're going to assume that's right because they're just asking us to place the decimal. So I'm just going to write the multiplication problem here. So now Lewis multiplied money. He had $2.35, and we know that that 5 in our problem is basically in the hundredths place because it's pennies. And so we want our 0 here to be in the hundredths place. And so I'm just going to go ahead and place my decimal in between the 9 and the 40. And I can check to see if that's reasonable by multiplying 4 times 2. If I multiplied 4 times 2, it would equal 8. So I know that $9.40 is reasonable. It's close to what I got when I multiplied the whole numbers. Okay, moving on, we're going to start with dividing decimals today. So go ahead on your board, draw these discs on your personal whiteboard here. You've got 9/10ths here, so we're going to divide 9/10ths into 3 equal groups. So if I divide my 9/10ths into 3 equal groups, how many are in each group here? If I make them, I'll just make them boxes here. How many are in each group? We would say that there are 3 in each group. And remember, they're tenths, so when I write my answer, it's going to be 3/10ths. So 9/10ths divided by 3 equals 3/10ths. How does unit form help us divide? So this is unit form. Unit form helps us divide because we identify the units, and then you're just dividing 9 of anything into 3 groups. So it could be tenths, hundred, thousandths. You're still dividing 9 into 3 groups. So I have 3/10ths, 3 groups of 1/10 here. let's go ahead and practice another problem here. So now I have 24 hundredths. So we notice that we're working in the hundredths column, and I divide it by 4. So I'm just going to go ahead and divide this up into 4 equal groups. So here's a group, here's a group, here's a group, here's a group. Notice I have 6 discs in each group. So I have 6 hundredths in each group. That means that 24 hundredths divided by 4 is 6 hundredths. Okay, they're just going to show you again. What you can do if you're not sure is you can just count by 6s, or by 4. So I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, until everything was filled up, and then I would have my groups there. So that's an easy way to divide if you're just not sure how many discs will go in each group. Okay, the next one we're going to divide is 32 thousandths. Notice that 2 is in the thousandths place, divided by 8. So I'm going to come over here, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I've got 8 groups, or 8 rows here. So I'm just going to circle each of those rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I can see that there are 4 thousandths in each row. So I'm going to answer 4 thousandths as my answer. So let's go ahead and keep dividing decimals. Go ahead and read this equation out loud to yourself. 1 and 5/10 divided by 5 equals. How could I convert this problem to tenths? Think back to yesterday's problem when we converted our multiplication problem into decimals. We took out the decimals, so we converted it to tenths and hundredths and thousandths. How could I convert this into tenths, and how would that help me solve the problem? Okay, so if I have converted this to tenths, that means that I now have 15 tenths divided by 5 here. Okay, and we know that 15 divided by 5 is 3. So if I divided 15 tenths by 5, I have 3 tenths in each group of 5. And then I can just write that as 15 or as 3 tenths, write it as a decimal, 0.3. So it helps me solve the problem by taking out the decimal and then putting it back in at the end so that I don't have to worry about decimal place while I'm dividing. Okay, let's go ahead and try 105 tenths, 5 hundredths, divided by 5. So now I've just got 105 hundredths divided by 5, and that is going to go in how many times? What is 105 divided by 5? So I know that 100 divided by 5 is 20, plus one more group of 5 is 21, and I have hundredths here, so I'm going to label it as hundredths. And then when I write that as a decimal, I want my 1 in the hundredths place. So I'm going to go 0.21. 21 hundredths is my answer. So that's my answer there. Let's go ahead and try it again with, we did this already. Let's go ahead and try it again with this one. So this one's a little bit trickier, but what I can do here is I can break this down into smaller pieces, kind of like when I divided my my multiplication problem. So I have 30 tenths divided by 5, and I have 15 thousandths divided by 5. So I can break those down and then put them back together here. So it's going to be 30 tenths divided by 5 plus 15 thousandths divided by 5. And then we'll add those together and we'll get our answer here. So 30 tenths divided by 5 is going to be 6 tenths, which is equal to 0.6. And 15 thousandths divided by 5 is going to be our 3 thousandths, which is going to equal 0.003. So when we add those together, 0.6 plus 0.003, we get 603 thousandths, okay? So all I did was I broke this down by this part and by this part. And this 30 right here, the zeros in the tenths column, so that's gonna be 30 tenths. And then this 15 here is in the thousandths, the 5 is in the thousandths column, so that makes it 15 thousandths. Let's go on and do another one here. I could have also broken it down into 3 ones and 15 thousandths. And here they're just going over the problem we just did. Okay, so let's look at these two problems here. I have 4 and 8 tenths divided by 6, and I get 8 hundredths here. I'm sorry, 8 tenths. And over here I have 48 divided by 6 equals 8. What do you notice? What relationships they have? What's the same about them? Things that are the same about them, we can notice that they both have the same digits. So here we're basically doing 48, but it's 48 tenths divided by 6 equals 8 tenths. And here it's 48 divided by 6 equals 8. But knowing that I can take out the decimal and then put it back in makes it so much easier, because now this problem is really similar to this problem. Let's go ahead and practice this one. 408 divided by 8 equals 51. Then what is 4 and 8 hundredths divided by 8? So the answer is going to be this 40 is 4 tenths. So 4 tenths divided by 8 is going to be, 40 tenths divided by 8 is going to be 5 tenths. And plus, and my 8 hundredths divided by 8 is going to be 1 hundredth. And when I add them together, I get 51 hundredths. So the decimal is between the 1 and the 8, or in the tens here. So it's going to be between the ones and the tenths here. Okay, same thing with this one, with this next one. 63,021 divided by 7 is 9,003. So I know that my answer is going to be the same digits because I'm dividing by the same digits here. Here, my decimal is between the ones and the tens place. I'm dividing thousandths, so my 3 is going to be in the thousandths place. So my decimal is going to be right here between the 9 and the 0. Let's go ahead and go on to the problem set. Go ahead and set your timer for 7 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll check. And for the problem set, I want you to do 1A and 1B. B, I'm going to take off 1C actually. So 1A and 1B, and then 2A, 2B, and 2D. So 1A, 1B, 2B, 2D. And then on the back side, I want you to do 3B and 4C. So go ahead and start your problem set. Okay, so this first problem says complete the sentences with the correct number of units and then complete the equation. So 4 groups of blank tenths is 1.6. So I've got a 6 here in the tenths column. So I've got 16 tenths. 16 tenths divided by 4 is going to be 4 tenths. So I'm going to write 0.4 as my answer. For number B, I have 8 groups of 32 hundredths, and 32 hundredths divided by 8 is going to be 4 hundredths. Moving down to number 2, it says complete the number sentence, express the quotient in units, and then in standard form. So I've got 2 and 64 hundredths divided by 2 equals blank ones divided by 2 plus blank hundredths divided by 2. So I've got 2 ones divided by 2 plus 2 plus 64 hundredths divided by 2. 2 ones divided by 2 is going to be 1. 64 divided by 2 is going to be 32 hundredths. 1 ones plus 32 hundredths is going to be 1 and 32 hundredths. For D, I have, it's dividing it into tenths and hundredths. So I've got 42 tenths because there's a 4 in the ones place, a 2 in the tenths place. That makes 42 tenths divided by 6 plus 6 hundredths divided by 6. So that makes 42 divided by 6 is going to be 7 tenths plus 1 hundredth. And so then I have 0.7 tenths and 1 hundredth. So 71 hundredths is my answer. Moving on to the back page on number 3, it says find the quotients, so divide and find the answers. Then use words, numbers, or pictures to describe any relationship you notice between each pair of problems and quotients. So 81 divided by 9 equals 9, and then 81 thousandths divided by 9 is going to equal 9 thousandths. So I write that as 0.0909, excuse me, 2 zeros and a 9. And they're the same because the digits are the same. So the digits in the quotient, oops, I spelled that wrong. Are the same. Okay, and then the last one, are these quotients regional? Explain your answer. So this one, 56 hundredths divided by 7 equals 8 hundredths. So 56 divided by 7 is going to equal 8. So yes, because 56 units divided by 8 equals, divided by 7 equals 8 units. And the unit that we're working with is hundredths, and the last digit of the dividend is in the hundredths, and the last place of the quotient is in the hundredths. So yes, it is reasonable because 56 units divided by 7 equals 8 units. Let's go on and do the problem set. So go ahead and pause for 3 or 4 minutes, and then go ahead and we'll check the problem set together. I'm sorry, that's still the problem set. Go ahead and check the exit ticket. And for the exit ticket, I just want you to do 2, A and B here. So it says complete the number sentence, express the quotient in unit form and then in standard form. So 4 and 5/10 divided by 5 equals blank tenths divided by 5 equals blank tenths equals blank. Okay, so 45/10 divided by 5 equals, and so 45 divided by 5 is 9, so 9/10, and 9/10 written as a decimal is 0.9. The next one, 6 and 12/100 divided by 6 equals 6 ones divided by 6 plus 12/100 divided by 6. 6 ones divided by 6 is 1. 12/100 divided by 6 is 2/100. And so my answer is going to be 1 and 2/100. Notice I got the 2 in the hundredths column here. Don't forget to put your 0 in as placeholder in the middle. You guys can go ahead and do your homework. You're going to go ahead and do the same numbers on the homework that you did for the problem set. Good job.